Welcome and thank you for standing by. All participants are currently on a listen-only mode until we have a formal question and answer period where you'll be able to raise your hand to ask your question verbally. Also, you'll be able to interact via the question and answer feature in WebEx. On the lower right-hand corner, there's a Q&A button that you can click on, and you could ask questions and address them to all panelists throughout today's session. Today's session is also being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to your host from the Census Bureau, Alexandra. Go ahead, Alexandra.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me, Anthony? Is it all good?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Good afternoon for those on the East Coast. Good morning if you are in the West Coast. And really, thank you for joining today our info session about the StatVentures Address Geolocation Challenge Phase 1. We'll be sharing a lot of information with you today. And in just a little bit, I will review the agenda with you. And now I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules. So first, Anthony mentioned a few things. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be available for you to review. If you go to challenge.gov to the FAQ pages, you'll be able to see the recording there in just a few days. During the sessions, all lines will be muted. At the end of the presentation, we will host a Q&A. But meanwhile, you can raise your virtual hand if you want to get in line for that time, or you can use the Q&A feature like Anthony mentioned, and myself and Victoria, I'll introduce Victoria soon, will be taking care of your questions there. The host, the presenters will be using the chat feature to share important information with you, such as links, some resources that we're going to be mentioned during the presentation. So keep a look at that chat too for those resources. And since we'll be sharing a lot of important information here, we encourage you to take notes or to use your print screen to capture some critical information. So now let's go over the agenda. First, we're going to start with some introductions. We're going to talk about the Census Open Innovation Labs and the StatVentures, the program we are here for today. Next, we're going to go into detail about the Address Geolocation Challenge, find out what it's all about, and then go over what's phase 1 and how you can participate. We're going to go over the rules and the process. And last, we're really going to open for questions and feedback so we can hear from you and understand what you're thinking about it and the questions that you have. So now let's go with introductions. So again, I am Alexandra Barker. I am a senior advisor and head of StatVentures with the Census Open Innovation Labs. And with me today, I have Dan and Victoria, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Dan, would like to go ahead, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Dan Keefe. I'm the Assistant Division Chief in Geography Division for Address Coverage, Content, and Geospatial Reference Data. Thank you.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Fine. I'm a senior advisor to Census Open Innovation Labs, and I'm here to support this program and support all of you through the process. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Victoria and Dan. As you can see, I brought the right people to this info session. Dan is our expert in geography and this challenge, and Victoria and I work together to manage this challenge. So if you decide to apply and participate, you will be hearing a lot from Victoria and I. So let's talk a little bit about the Census Open Innovation Labs. If you have not heard of it, we call it COIL. And COIL, the mission of COIL is to source knowledge and solutions to solve key challenges for the Census Bureau and for the public at large through a variety of different methods: human design, centered design, data, creative media, and technology. And we have so many programs running within COIL to serve this mission, and StatVentures is one of them. It's one of the newest ones, and we're going to learn a lot about it today. So StatVentures, our goal here is to scout technology through collaborations. We talk about commercial technology. We are collaborating with innovators outside of government to ensure that the Census Bureau continues to provide the highest quality data to the public. And we work through multi-phase competitions, and we invite participants to propose new concepts that could ultimately become the next methods and data sources for the Census Bureau. So let's just think it this way. The Census Bureau has a mission, right, to provide the best quality data about its people and the economy in the country to the public. we are constantly finding, identifying, researching, working ways to make our operations and our data dissemination, our products better. But we know that the demographic, the housing, the economic landscape is changing. So is technology. And as we work internally to improve the way we do our business, we know that out there, somewhere across the country, there might be great ideas and great technology that is being created that could actually solve some of our challenges that we're working on. And as the Census Bureau changes, and again, the landscape out there changes and technology changes, StatVentures coming here now to really create that bridge so we can learn about the ideas, the technology that's out there that can solve our challenges. And the goal, the ultimate goal, is the adoption of ideas that can solve our challenges. So let's talk a little bit about how StatVentures works. What is the format of this program? So it works in 4 different phases. First phase is what we're going to be talking about today, is the concept. So we're asking the public to just share the idea, to share their concept. You're going to read the challenge, say, wow, I do have a great idea, or I do have existing technology, or I can develop something that can solve this challenge. So this is the stage we are. We're just asking for the most innovative, radical ideas to be sent to us. So this is phase 1. Phase 2 is the roadmap phase, is when we ask you to iterate on your idea and show us how you would implement that. Show us what level of effort it would take. What is the return on investment for the Census Bureau? What effort is in your end, our end? So this is the roadmap, and it's phase 2. And then we move into phase 3, which is testing. Basically, you're going to pilot your idea, and we're going to see how it works, right? To determine, with the go again, which will be phase 4 of adoption. So this is pretty much in a nutshell how the 4 phases of StatVentures works. And again, we are on phase 1. We just launched this new challenge. So let's now specifically talk about the address geolocation challenge, what you're here to learn all about, right? So this is the second challenge that we are launching with StatVentures. StatVentures, like I said, is a new program. We started about a year ago with the supply chain challenge, which we are just closing, finalizing phase 2. And on February 27th, we launched the address geolocation challenge. And the goal here is to solve one specific challenge for the Census Bureau. We are looking for ways that we can innovate how we geolocate residential addresses, especially in rural and remote areas in the United States. We're talking about areas with a lot of non-city style addresses. We're talking about areas with like descriptions like blue house under a trailer in the zip code. So we need to identify innovative ways that we can not only improve the way we geolocate these addresses, but also how often are we able to update, what level of granularity these addresses will have in our list. So we do maintain a list of residential addresses, and we have our methods, and Dan was going to talk about it soon, of updating and keeping that. And again, we're looking just for innovative ways to make sure that we have the most complete address list we can have in the country, because having a complete list consequently help us in the data collection. So if we want to have good data collected, whether it's from the census every 10 years or from surveys, it always starts with that base, with that good list. So we make sure that we reach out to everyone to be counted in this country. So then I'm going to pass it to you right now so you are very involved in this challenge. You see day to day what this list is like and what it should be like and the challenges we have. So I wanted to share a little bit with everyone and then talk about the current methods we use to work with our master address list.
Sure. Thank you, Alexandra. As you mentioned, the technology, we're trying to take advantage of some of the new technologies. And we are experimenting and working with some new technology ourselves, but I'd like to talk a little bit about how these areas were built in the past and what we're doing now, and what our master address file or MapTiger system is, the sources that we use to update it now. You can see there we have the United States Postal Service delivery sequence file and all the associated files like ZICMove and locate address conversion system. So that is really the main source of update. If an address gets mail or received mail or is going to receive mail, we have it, we got it. 30 million odd records, 98% enumerated. The USPS is a great source. But as we talk about these rural areas, these non-traditional type of addresses that are location descriptions, they are not on the DSF and they do not receive mail. So that's why there's a unique challenge here. We also receive, we have some outreach and partnerships with tribal, state, and local governments. Last decade, we spent the GSSI, the initiative to receive and update from local governments, state governments, partnerships. All of the files that we received was a great success. The field operations, once a decade, is the traditional methods for updating these areas. We send someone out, it's costly, it's labor intensive, and often there is, there could be some errors in the results. It's an XY coordinate I say location description, often it's a physical description, which can change. We all know that you can paint your shutters, you can paint your house, you can remove the trailer, and maybe your dog is no longer in the yard. That's the type of descriptions we would get, greenhouse with dog in yard. Ideally, we would need to list that area and get an enumerator back out there to capture that enumeration. That's critical to getting everyone in these areas counted as they should be. The boundary and annexation survey, that's the legal boundaries. We keep the legal boundaries for the nation. We also receive some feature updates that we use. The roads are critical. If we're trying to send someone back out for enumeration, we need the correct feature network. The NAPE imagery program, that's our base imagery for the updates. That's, I think, about 94, 95% of our imagery is NAPE. That's in our update application. We do have state and local imagery sources that we use to supplement that. We're also, we're looking into some of the new innovation and technology that we're doing. We use the GEGD imagery. This is the traditional NGA, enhanced view, digital globe. I think it's now EOCL under Maxar and Planet and Blue Sky. One of them else is in there, mostly Maxar. But so we do use that, and that's updated frequently. We're also using Sentinel-2. It's a moderate resolution. It's part of our machine learning and AI. We're doing semi-supervised machine learning for automated change detection. We do a moderate pass for the entire nation, and then we're doing a high resolution pass with building and feature extraction using the high resolution imagery. We're applying some of these techniques to the areas, the rural areas, but we want to know what other people are doing, how we can leverage some of the other technology that's going on there. Another big one is parcel updates, but again, these areas often are non-permit issuing, no parcels, so that there is sort of a data desert there where we don't have the data. So that's why this challenge is really important, to take advantage of what others are doing or what some of the ideas are, so that we can not only create this list, but maintain this list.
Okay, thank you so much, Dan. And just for everyone's information, Dan was summarizing our methods. We also have this resource in a little bit more detail that Dan provided to us, available now for you on challenge.gov. And we can post it in the chat for you, all the links. You can visit our website and then link to challenge.gov and see on the FAQ pages, we have a description of these methods in more detail, so you can really learn what we're doing and links to them so you can read more and really understand what is being done at the Census Bureau, because we don't want you to be constrained by what we are doing right now. You can submit ideas that can build on and improve on what we're doing, but it can be also something very innovative, very radical, that's nothing to do with what the methods and sources we're using right now. But we feel that's important that you have the knowledge, so you're now offering an idea of something we're already doing. So that's why we want to make sure you have that information available at your fingertips for you. So it's, again, posted on challenge.gov. And we really encourage you here, it's to look at novel technologies and novel methods and approaches there are outside of what Dan mentioned about sending a canvasser to a house, the traditional in-person canvassing method. That's very costly, very time consuming. It's a very large operation. And if we can reduce that by using technology, that's what we're looking for. It's going to make it a lot more cost effective and overall have more quality for our address list. So when it comes to the concept idea, these ideas we're asking for you to share with us, or there are 4 areas that are really important when it comes to our address geolocation challenge. First is how complete this list. So will your solution be able to make our list more complete? Can we get geolocation for those addresses that are not existing in our list right now? Or we have maybe as a description, right? How accurate it is. Are you going to give us a geolocation? What reference are we going to have to know exactly where the address is located on the ground? How timely will your technology help us make our list? Can we update? How regularly could we update and get new addresses? We know there's new construction happening all the time. There are also areas being demolished or abandoned. So how often could we update our list based on your idea or technology? And how granular would we go? Are we going to get a very detailed point with description, like how much granularity can you offer us through your idea or technology? Ideas don't have to include all 4 areas of improvement to consider, but make sure you keep those in mind, because at least 1, 2, as many of those you are able to address better, because we are looking for solutions that could address these areas that we need improvement. Okay. So now let's talk specifically about phase 1. I think it's all very interesting in is our timeline, talk a little bit about the process and the awards. So I'm going to review right now with you our timeline. And you are on the first point of our timeline, which is our first info session to really let the public know about this challenge and how to participate. On March 11th, and this is really, really important, on March 11th at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to open to receive applications. So at that point, you'll be able to follow the process that Victoria is going to review with you very soon and send us your application. And we're going to be accepting applications until April 19th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So keep these dates in mind. They're very important because we will not be taking your application if you send after the deadline. We're also going to have some more info sessions. We have one info session scheduled for March 21st. That's our info session number 2. And we have another info session right before the deadline on April 12th. They're all at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you know of any organization that would be interested in learning about this and participate, please share the information with them so they can also register for our info session. So let's talk a little bit about phase 1 at a glance. I just want to give you an idea of what is this all about before Victoria comes in and really give you all the goodies and give you all the detail about this. So at phase 1, like I mentioned earlier, we're asking for you to submit a concept note. And your idea, just keep in mind, must be deployable by 2025. Maybe something that you're already doing is already deployable, but maybe something brand new that you would have to build, and that should be deployable by 2025. We are awarding up to $100,000 in prizes across 10 prizes. So at the end of phase 1, we're going to select 10 teams to be awarded the prizes. And those 10 teams will automatically get a spot on phase 2. But phase 2 is also open to other teams to join. But those 10 teams will automatically get a spot. If a team does not win phase 1, can they participate in phase 2? Yes, they can. They will have we have an entire process and we'll review that when we get to phase 2, but more teams can join. It's just the 10 winners will get their monetary award and automatically be qualified for phase 2. All submissions, all concept notes will be evaluated on their clarity, innovation, expertise, and potential for impact. And Victoria is going to review that in detail in a little bit. So what we ask is that you carefully go to challenge.gov, review all tabs on challenge.gov for the detailed requirements, the rules, the terms and conditions. This is very important so you successfully submit a concept note. We would hate to see a good idea coming in that has not met all the requirements for the submission, and then we can't use it. So please make sure you go to challenge.gov. So if Victoria, if you can post it on the chat, if you haven't already, sorry, I'm not looking at the chat right now. Make sure that's there so everyone can have a link. So now what I'm going to do, I am actually going to pass to Victoria so she can start talking in more detail about this process with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexandra. So in order to be eligible to submit a concept, we have a few basic requirements. We're currently soliciting ideas from any US-based entities or individuals. If you're working with a company that has international locations as well, there has to be a US headquarters that is more than just one person living in the US, but in fact an established office of some kind in the US. And if you're an individual submitting and idea or a concept note, you also have to be US based. We are also excluding this opportunity for US Census Bureau employees, and federal contractors who would be using their federal contract funds to prepare submissions. There are a few more details about these if you have questions that if you check out challenge.gov, you'll be able to understand a little bit more. As Alexander mentioned, we ask that concept notes are submitted between 12:01 a.m. on March 11th and 11:59 p.m. Eastern on April 19th. We're asking people to submit their concept note in a PDF format to the email address statventures@census.gov. We have a very specific subject line. We will filter out other requests, or we'll filter out concept notes that don't meet that subject line if you don't include it. We also have a template that that essentially encompasses all of the elements that I'm going to go through now. That template is also available on challenge.gov, and we strongly encourage teams to use it. Go to the next slide. All right, so what's in the concept note? This is a very simple, usually about 3-page concept note. First, you're going to submit an intake form. This is a quick form that gives the basic information about your concept that will allow us to have you in our system. And then the actual concept note you're going to submit as a PDF. So there's 2 parts. There's the intake form and then the PDF. In part 1, in your concept note application, you're simply going to outline who your team is. That information will include the primary people working on the concept or submitting it, the name of the organization, and as a flag to folks who may or may not be in the country, the primary people listed have to be within the US. Part 2 is the substance of the concept note. The first part is your title and a short tagline. Consider this like a 1-sentence elevator pitch of what you're doing. Please make it as simple as possible because that's what's going to catch people's eyes when they're reading your concept note in the judging process. And then in the narrative description, we want to see a bit of the following. We want to understand how your concept works and what it is. We want to understand why it's original and why it has the potential to improve upon what we're already doing. So you heard from Dan on what the census is already doing to understand the scope of addresses across the country. How can you make that better? We want to understand how it could change the way addresses are geolocated with an eye towards scale. We want to understand whether it is ready now, whether you've deployed it already, or this is just an idea that you'd like to deploy in the future, specifically for this challenge. Both options are very welcome as submissions, but we need to know at what point of readiness you are with your idea. And then lastly, we want to understand you as the team members behind the idea. What makes you the right person to execute on this plan? Additionally, we have an optional part 3. This is a multimedia documentation area, and you may submit a web link of up to 4 minutes of video or up to 10 slides. Other links, such as a link to a website, a link to additional documentation, a longer pitch deck, if it does not meet those requirements, will not be shared with judges. So it'll be thrown out of your application. We can move forward. All right, so what can you say in that 3 pages? You can present any ways to improve upon available information. That includes data streams, measurement techniques, collection technologies, or new approaches. You can be radically innovative with how you're proposing to change the collection of this data, or you can offer an incremental improvement of what's already being done. Both are welcome. You can propose the adoption of a technology or method currently used, or something completely new. And your concept can take any form. It can be an algorithm using new or existing data. You can use technologies such as drones and satellites. AI and machine learning is welcome, or emerging technology that has not been used yet or perhaps never used for this purpose. We very much welcome those submissions as well. We also welcome proprietary and open data sources. Finally, we hope to see concepts that are deployable anytime between now, today, tomorrow, until 2025. The judges will review these applications on 4 points. The first is clarity, the second is innovation, and expertise and potential for impact are the other elements of evaluation. And I'll go into each in a little bit more detail. So clarity. I want to stress that we have a wide range of judges from different backgrounds assessing these concepts. So successful concepts are usually the ones that are written simply, clearly, and to the point of exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Please save your technical explanations for deeper conversations once you get past this phase. What we're looking for is a really basic understanding of what you're trying to accomplish here. So clarity includes the overall presentation of the concept, how it works or could work to geolocate addresses. And it also includes just how well you explain all of the technical working in plain and understandable language, because we want to feel really confident that the concepts that we're progressing are ones that we understand. We can go to the next one. Innovation is pretty straightforward and broad, I would say. We want to look for ideas that meaningfully depart from current US measurement tools and methodologies at the census. And so feel free to use these info sessions and submit questions to us to fully understand what the US Census is currently doing so that you can craft your explanation of how your concept meaningfully departs accordingly. Expertise. This is about you. We want to understand how able you are to execute on your concept. We'd like to understand if you are capable of scaling this, if you reach the next round of investment. And we also want to understand how you got to this point, where your expertise comes from, and what makes you the right person to submit the concept. Potential for impact helps us understand the possibility of scale for the solution. We are looking for problem solving in specific regions, but we hope that at the end of all of our phases that we'll have concepts that are able to reach as many untapped, if you will, addresses as possible. So we'd like to understand what the possibility of scale looks like for the concept you've submitted. Both niche and grand scale concepts are welcome, but we want to be really clear on what's possible with the concepts as submitted. And lastly, excuse me, one moment. The phase 1 awards that we will award for at the end of this time period will be up to 10 prizes of $10,000. We'll offer an invitation to those winners to the phase 2 innovator cohort. And in that cohort, we'll invite innovators to produce a product roadmap and offer additional information during that proposal development period to help those innovators be very specific with how their concepts could integrate into the census environment. So we'll provide some additional informational sessions and get really nitty gritty about how these large scale concepts can expand into something that fits the government environment. So with that, I'll pass it back to Alexandra.
Okay, thank you, Victoria, for covering the process in detail. Just to remind everyone else, everything Victoria said, mentioned to you is on challenge.gov. You can go there for the template for your concept note. We really, like you said, strongly encourage you to use the template. If you just delete the instructions and add all information to the template, we know you'll be meeting the requirements for at least the concept note submission portion. So let's go back again to the very important key things of your submission. Your submission note must come in a PDF format to StatVentures email, statventures@census.gov. On challenge.gov, when you look at the session about how to enter, we'll tell you how to label the name convention for your PDF file. So that's very important too. So please, again, refer to challenge.gov for all those details. Make sure you submit between March 11th and April 19th. This is our submission window period. And like, I won't stop saying this, please look at the template because it's really important that you follow all the requirements for your concept note. Regarding the prize, we talked about 100,000 in prizes for phase one. Remember, this is a phase one prize. We don't have yet an amount for the phase two prize, but this is the phase one prize for this challenge. Okay. And right now, I think we can talk about the next info sessions and then go into Q&A. Just keep in mind again that we have another info session on the 21st of March. So if you want to join to review this again or to ask more questions, that's a great time to do so. Also on Friday the 12th, we put that strategically right before deadline. So in case you have questions and want to review anything, that's the good time, and you still have a few days to adjust and submit. So now let's move into Q&A so we can hear your questions. If you have questions, you can send via the Q&A chat for us, or you can just raise your virtual hand and Anthony, our host today, will unmute you. Victoria, do you see any questions in the Q&A you want to share with me?
Yes, we do have a few. I'll go ahead and ask and answer one of them because it's pretty simple. Someone asked, will a recording of this be available? And it will be. We'll post all of the recordings of all of our info sessions on challenge.gov under the resources section. So we will provide this and answers to any questions that are asked on challenge.gov as well. And then the next question that I see here, let's see. Okay, one question is, will competitors be receiving cost breakdowns of the current methods? How much the current methods cost in order to propose a significant price cut in a novel method?
Okay. Dan would like to cover that.
I can try. No, I don't believe we were planning on providing the cost for the current methods. I mean, it's not something that I would have handily or easily access to. So
yeah, and adding to that is you're not going to be asked to do a cost comparison with our methods. We're really right now in this concept node, just asking like, put your idea forward, like show us like what innovative technology or idea you have. Just bring it forward. Don't worry about this part right now. If you go to phase two, we're going to talk more. We're going to have some learning sessions for you with some of our experts in different areas, and you can ask how to show return on investment and all of that. We're going to cover that for phase two because this is a portion that will be addressed on phase two. Right now, just put your idea forward, and that's what we're asking for.
Great, thanks. The next question, hi, Raul. This comes from Raul Rios Diaz, who's worked with us on top. For solutions that rely on proprietary data when open source data is not available, will phase 2 or phase 3 include funding for purchasing data sources to develop a prototype?
So we don't have the rules and requirements for phase 3 yet. When we announce, we will be able to have those conversations. And also because we're going to be funding some pilots on phase 3, you will put forward what you need to be funded so your pilot works. So that's when that will take place. So until that point, we won't be covering these types of funding for pilots because it's going to be specific by project or by idea for phase 3. Victoria, do you want to add anything to it?
Nope, that sounds great. I think that covered it.
Yeah.
It looks like we have a verbal question. Anthony, would you like to unmute the question asker?
Go ahead, Rodney. Your line should be open now. You could unmute. Rodney, you can go ahead. Having trouble hearing you, Rodney. You may have to articulate that in the chat. We do have another question from Raul. Raul, you should be able to unmute now.
I think Raul had asked his questions, correct, Victoria? But you're muted now.
Unless Raul has another question. I think we addressed his as well. All right. Well, Rodney, if you decide to re-up on your question, you can let us know and we'll unmute you. I'm going to go ahead to the next question from Ravi. Can you please provide a link to the template? I just pinged Alessandra to go ahead and put that in our chat as well. The next question here is, ooh, this is a good one. Keeping the expertise criteria as 20%, could a team of university students submit a challenge? Would this criteria downgrade their submission? Alexander, do you want to take a stab at that?
Oh, we're looking forward to hear from academic institutions and students on our supply chain challenge. We do have academic teams, great proposals received from them. So no, if they're students, that's their expertise, they're studying, and they have an innovative idea, that would not count against them.
Yeah,
if they demonstrate they understand what they're talking about, it doesn't matter if they're students.
Right, Alexander, I would add that we are also looking forward to that too. I know that the latest technology, they're getting their hands on it and they're doing great things with it. I mean, I have a graduate student at GW and another student, and they're using GIS and Tableau and all of these things in their regular work that's not geography related. So if there's anyone that's interested in geography using this technology, we are anxious to see what they're doing.
Ravi, you can ask a question. Your line's open. Okay. All right, we have no verbal questions right now.
Victoria, anything else?
It looks like we have a couple more in the Q&A. So give me one moment just to assess them. One moment.
And just for reference, Rondi's question was entered into the chat, and that was just to re-review the information about the expertise judging criteria or criterion. There was just more information.
Yeah, if Rondi would like to add more context on what their question was, I can just quickly re-review what we're looking for expertise generally, but if there are any other things I can do to clarify that. Expertise includes what makes you the right person to execute on this concept note, should it be developed into something larger in later phases. It also includes your background and area of expertise, what your team makeup is, and anything else you think we should know to understand why you are an excellent resource for this information and an excellent partner to work with as phases would move forward. Hopefully that answers that question. The next question I see here is, can third-party applications be used in a solution?
Victoria, do you want to go ahead and answer that, or do you want me to answer?
I can take a stab if you'd like to add, Alexandra.
Sure.
I do understand that we welcome third-party applications and any format of new technology or data. So if there's a platform that's already collecting or using that data, or a way in which the data is collected or used on a different platform, we welcome the use of that. We also welcome both open source and privately held data. So the details of how that might work in the government environment obviously need to be sorted out in later phases, but for the concept notes, we welcome all forms of new approaches.
Okay. Victoria, I don't know if you see a question that I see here in Q&A that I found very interesting. It says, if a company has more than one idea to improve Census Bureau address geolocation data, do you accept multiple submissions? Yes, so we do. We just need to make sure that you send them separately as a separate concept note, following the same requirements for each one of them. And then you can submit as many ideas as you want. Just again, they all have to be separate. Take their own concept note, their own submission, and all of that.
The next question we have here is, are all scales of data aggregation acceptable, city, county, and state?
Dan would like to take a stab on that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, are all scales of data aggregation acceptable, city, county, and state, as examples?
You mean, are they asking if they need to do it at the county level or state level? I'm not.
They confirm that yes, that's their question.
I don't know if they can clarify. I mean, some of these areas cover multiple states. Some are huge and cover are all contained within one state, like Alaska. But you know, some of the American Indian reservations are larger than you know, half of New England. So I would need a little more clarification on the question. So
Perhaps I can interpret it, and the question asker, I believe his name is Gene, can clarify if I'm understanding this correctly. But what I'm reading from this is, if someone is able to submit a solution that addresses a city level information gap or size, is that acceptable, or does it need to be at a larger level to be able to submit a concept? I think, yeah, and he said, yeah, or he or she said, yes. Can the solution be provided at the local jurisdiction level?
right, and I think the challenge, I think we talked about earlier, and the challenge that while it has to be, we prefer scalable to a national level. If some of these areas are unique, and if it's a solution for a particular area, we will review that, right? Like we're not going to exclude it if it helps solve, like, say, a particular area that covers a large land area, but doesn't work for somewhere else in the country. I don't think that will be excluded. So I think we would review that, right?
Right, and I can add to it. So, and if you think as we move through phases, let's say that you do have the solution that you have tested for a region, for a particular geographic area, and that's what you can show or demonstrate or pilot, but you think it's scalable. That's something we would like to know, like how you would scale, how can it be scaled for the entire US, because that will help us. As Dan said, we will be interested if your solution will help solve the challenge, we will look at it. But if you have something that you know works regionally and you want to demonstrate how it can be scaled, we would be interested in looking at that too.
Great. We do have a short question, which I'll ask and then answer out loud for us, which is, will the other two information sessions be the same as today, and can the link to today's recording be shared? We will do the same presentation at the beginning of each session, and the Q&A period will obviously address whatever questions are asked and answered in that session. All of the links to all of the recordings will be available on challenge.gov. I believe within 24 hours of the recording. And we'll also take care to post the answers to any new questions that come up. So you can return periodically if you don't want to attend all 3 sessions to see if any new information has become available. And all of that will be available on challenge.gov.
Yeah, like Victoria said, we will keep updating our FAQs as we hear questions that are of interest to everybody. We want to make sure that everybody has good information, the same information. So we'll continue to update our FAQs as those questions pop up.
Great. And it looks like, I believe we have one more question. And Anthony, you can correct me if there's anyone else waiting for a verbal question. This question is, if a phase 1 solution includes a solution that uses proprietary data that would involve cost, so it's not open software or data, can they still be selected for phase 1, even if later the cost associated with the proposed solution would not be accepted to go forward in phase 3 due to cost criteria? I'm going to take a stab at that, and then Alexandra, if you want to add anything else. For phase 1, we highly encourage you, if you have a great idea, to submit it. I would not at this point be concerned about cost. In our other challenge, we have noted a very wide range of solutions and costs associated with those solutions. And there are a lot of different ways to look at that. And we'll ask you in later phases, if you move forward, how you might handle that. We'll have discussion sessions in later phases that specifically address questions like this. But I would highly encourage anyone to not self-limit their submission by being concerned about future costs. So that would be my answer to that. Alexandra, if you want to add anything.
No, that's perfect. Victoria said, we don't want you to concern yourself about costs for now, to concern about it, because it comes to a point when we start evaluating the return on investment, we're going to start having those conversations. Again, we're going to provide some guidance. And there's a lot that goes into evaluating the cost and the benefit of a proposal, because we know what we're doing. We know what it costs us. And, maybe an idea could be more expensive upfront, but long-term is going to save us a lot of money in address canvassing. That may be worth it. But those are things we're going to evaluate later. So don't concern yourself about it right now. Submit your idea. And as you go into phase 2, we're going to work more on that. And then phase 3 is where we're really going to be talking about costs.
I believe, Alexandra, and please, if I haven't addressed your question, please raise your hand or note it now. But as far as I can tell, I think we've addressed all of the questions in the chat. And let me ask Anthony if there's anyone else who has a verbal question.
Nope, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything else. I'm going over the questions. Okay. Yeah, it looks good on my end as well. Again, we're going to give you guys a few more minutes. We're going to keep this open until 3. Anthony, if you don't mind, or Victoria, Dan, to just keep it open until 3. If you have any questions, please, we'll be here. Post on the Q&A. And
we do have one more question that just came up.
Okay.
Can nonprofits or for-profits apply?
Yes, we do not restrict based on the characteristics of your company. Victoria reviewed eligibility. If you're a US-based company or a team, yes, please apply. Being a nonprofit or for profit, that really, does not disqualify you or qualify you more.
All right, now I think that's it. And please post your questions. We'll stay on for a few more minutes as well.
Yes.
Alexandra, the question was asked, can local governments submit something?
Yes, local governments can. If you have a team with an idea and a solution, yes, please go ahead and submit. Again, the restrictions here, and Victoria, if you don't mind going over them again, are being US-based. And I will let Victoria talk about it. Victoria, go ahead, since you covered that slide. Just review the eligibility.
Yeah, so being US-based or being a citizen or a US-based entity is a restriction. And then the second restriction, which I think Jean might be asking here, is whether you're restricted because you're part of the government in general. And the restriction is actually that you are not using federal funds to solve the problem on federal time and money is my understanding, my colloquial understanding of that
That's correct.
restriction. So if a local government is receiving federal funds to solve an addressing challenge, you would not be able to apply. But otherwise, if you have a great idea that you are solving in your jurisdiction, then absolutely please submit it.
Right. Yes. Or even if you're receiving federal funds, but you're using those funds for the time of this challenge, you'll be fine. And the same thing works with contractors. We have a lot of private organizations that are contracted with the federal government. Yes, you can participate, but you cannot use the time for this challenge. You cannot use funds from those contracts to work on this challenge.
Yeah, and the other interesting part of this is when I went over the part of the slide about the methods and the partnerships, in these areas, we do reach out to ask if they have a local file, right? So like that's one of the ways that we build addresses in these areas is reaching out to the local government. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting submission to the challenge. So just wanted to put that out there. So.
Oh, no, we have a lot more questions, Victoria, coming in. Is this for rural addresses only? No, it's not limited to rural addresses only. We are trying to find a better method to geolocate addresses across the board, but especially non-city style addresses. That's where it's most challenging. So addressing that is really important, but we want a method that it helps us geolocate addresses, residential addresses in the US. Dan, do you want to add to it?
Yeah, so as I talked about, so we have the delivery sequence file that we use to update and we geocode, and then the parcel data. We have XY coordinates for about 95% and growing of the 145 million good addresses in our database. So the city style addresses that we have multiple sources for are geocoded. We have them, we know where they are. It's the specifically those rural addresses, the non-traditional addresses that are location descriptions. That's what we're really looking for in this challenge.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Another question that I see here is what is the nexus between this project and the National Address Database project? And I believe this is a question for Dan.
Yeah, so the National Address Database is publicly available. We have downloaded it. I think the last time or the one we downloaded was about 75% complete. We match it to the map, and we can say that we have some statistics that'll say whether the NAD is good in certain areas, but you cannot match one of these addresses. You can't match tan house, green roof to a lat long, because we have to be able to standardize and parse the address and match. These areas, we do plan to use the National Address Database to possibly harvest some of these addresses, but we're just getting underway. So we are aware of the NAD. We're going to use the NAD if it has these addresses, but a lot of times these addresses are not in the National Address Database. Because I believe the National Address Database might require, I'd have to look into this, but it might require some address guidelines before it can go in there.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
There's one more question in here that I think is a follow-up to this. Sorry, I'm trying to understand how. So Sally was describing the MAF as the master address file, but then Jean said, and link with this project in NG 911. And I'm not sure, Jean, if that was a question or an addition to Sally's comment, if you want to clarify.
It's at the next gen 911 for the locatable addresses, I believe.
Okay.
I'm also interpreting that as a question about if there is a link with this challenge and NG 911.
Yeah, Jean, he or she just clarified it's another addressing initiative. So I'm understanding, is there a link with that as well?
I believe the next gen 911 is to get more locatable addresses for emergency services. A lot of these addresses don't have a house number. They don't have any way for an ambulance or first responder to get there. So I've had teams on the next gen or the NINA groups for the past 20 years, and that's a push to get locatable addresses, not necessarily mailing, but locatable addresses for emergency responders. So these areas will not have those locatable addresses created. So locatable addresses, house number, street name that someone can find, not necessarily a zip code. Zip code is mailing, but you would want to have an address that you could put in and someone could, a first responder could get there. And display the house number. That's key too.
I'm looking at the remainder of the Q&As. I don't see any other questions on my end. Alexandra, you may have received some direct questions when you said you saw a bunch coming in. So I'm just going to encourage you to double check that.
I did. The one I received, I believe I already answered, and it's hold on, let me check here. Yeah, and it was just direct message. So I think for general responses, I don't see any new ones.
Okay, then I think that that's all the questions that we've received so far. Oh, wait, we do have one more. The question is, Dan, you mentioned a 95% geocoding at a national level. Can you share statistics for your actual geocoding in Puerto Rico and on tribal areas that currently present an additional challenge for existing national geocoding technology? This is a pop quiz.
Okay, so as we mentioned, that most of these addresses that we have are from fieldwork, which are required to have an XY. So I could say that the ones that we have are geocoded. Are they geocoded in the correct location? Are they geocoded on the structure? Some of the work that we've done now shows that they're not always where they need to be. But we do have them geocoded. Geocoded doesn't mean it's correctly geocoded. So in some of these areas, they could be far away from the actual structure. In a large block with three houses, one of them we have is a 25 square kilometer block with 3 housing units. If you don't put those in the correct location, it's going to be hard for an enumerator to get back out there. So the ones that we do receive from field work that we've done the past few decades, they are geocoded, but it doesn't mean they're in the right location. Puerto Rico is something else entirely. We do process the delivery sequence file for Puerto Rico. I think we're matching it like just under 70% rates in Puerto Rico right now. We do have some Puerto Rico initiatives going on, and we have a working group that's dedicated to improving Puerto Rico address matching and geocoding.
Okay, I think we're on the top of the hour right now. Dan, thank you so much for being here as an expert in geography to answer these questions. Victoria, thank you for your help. Alessandra, thank you for running the slides. And Anthony, thank you so much for hosting this info session. To everyone who is interested in StatVentures Address Geolocation Challenge, please go check challenge.gov, check our website as well. We share in the chat with you. And reach out to us if you have any questions.
That concludes today's session. You may disconnect at this time. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.